Hi, welcome to Tennis 2020, Real Talk, Real People, Real Life. This service is brought to you by Austin Tennis Academy and EKH Media, where we are trying to be the conduit of information, not the filter. That means you get it all raw right here. Today, we're talking to somebody that's going to help us in this time when we're confined. Josh Rifkin is one of the lead fitness trainers at Austin Tennis Academy, and he is here and he's going to help us with some ways that we can increase the value of our everyday workouts. Welcome, Josh. How you doing, man?
Doing well, Dewey. Excited to be here.
Yeah. Um, Tell us a little bit about self-care, mobility, um, that whole that whole genre, and how we can add it to some of the workouts maybe that we're doing.
Yeah, so self-care, or I would kind of categorize mobility into that section, is typically something that is tedious or not necessarily pushing physical outcome. So people tend to stay away from it. But it's actually something that can help us move a little bit better. So the performance goals or the physical activity that you're about to do, you'll be feeling better and performing at a higher level, reducing risk of injury as well. So it's massively important, but usually overlooked.
So how important is it? Because I'm guessing I look out my window and I see people walking that look like they haven't walked in a long time, other than to the car and back. Um, and so people are getting and they're trying to exercise more, right? They have free time on their hands. They're bored. They're jumping in, looking at, oh, here's an opportunity to maybe get fit, and pushing a little bit harder than they would have otherwise. People that have never had that New Year's resolution of joining the gym are now all of a sudden working out. How can we provide them with some things that might help them in that situation?
So it's a really good point, and I want to talk about the opportunity to now train or work out, and we're finding ourselves kind of trapped, not knowing what to do. So a lot of people are trying to build that discipline or that habit to work out more. And if you think about what most people are doing at home, especially if they're working from a computer or sitting all day, now all of a sudden they're going to jump up and do an exercise or a workout they see on the internet, maybe aggressive, or start to go walking. And if they're stiff or not moving well, it's going to be compensation. And while movement is fantastic, it helps to have the joints move and the body move and feeling better and all those goals that we know with our benefits of exercise. It can be also compensatory. It can contribute to pain. It might be uncomfortable. And doing some mobility work prior to that, or some recovery throughout the day or after, is going to allow these people, myself, everyone, kind of move better, feel better. That's something I would just suggest, like doing pre and or post or throughout the day, now that we have so much time on our hands to try to get into some more physical activity.
You provided us with a couple of videos of things that people can do. Can we show those to people, and maybe you help us? Well, I believe they're somewhat self-explanatory, but once they see them, you can maybe help us understand why these particular exercises are important.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's three, so we can do the hips for sure to start, and maybe even the breathing one on the foam roller, which we didn't talk about, but I
Okay.
have a lot of thoughts on that. So
Okay. Well, Kim, can we roll the hips and
What's up, guys? Coach Riff here. Welcome to today's pod. Today I want to be talking all about the hips, and I want to show you one of my favorite hip mobility exercises to do to help get the hips moving a little bit better before I'm going to go play tennis or work out, or just in general if you know you have some tight hips. So you're going to be starting down on the ground in this 90-90 position. If the hips are really tight, you're going to be putting your arms back behind you for some support. And what you're just going to do is rotate the hips to open them up, switching sides, and I'm leaning back on my hands for support. What you can also do if your hips are really tight, you make this your own. I like to lean forward in the end position and back to feel some glutes and hip stretches, and then go into the windshield wiper movement. The end goal will be to work so you can do this movement with no hands, okay? As Shakira said, hips don't lie. Get out, do something nice for your hips today. Thanks, guys.
Shakira.
Shakira.
Yeah.
So that's an exercise.
What's up, guys? Coach Riff here. Today is try.
Oh, there we go. Welcome to live. So that's an exercise which can be done at various levels based on your hip flexibility. So I think I saw you, and that would certainly be me. That one in the beginning with me leaning back because my hips are really tight, as opposed to somebody whose maybe hips are really loose and they're out doing it. I saw a bunch of kids in academy the other day doing it with no hands, right? Their hands are just up and they're flowing back and forth, and I wish I could be like that again. How hard do you suggest somebody push? When is it right to go from one with your hands back behind you to sitting more up straight to trying to do it with no hands? How would somebody know?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the thing with mobility is your body is only going to allow you to move in positions that it feels safe in reaching. So if your hips are extremely tight and you're trying to go no hands and forcing through and cranking on your hip, it's just going to be the counter effect. Your nervous system is like, no, this is too much. I'm going to shut down. You won't achieve the fluidity or the mobility in your hips. So I would suggest starting in that 90-90 position. And one of the pieces I didn't even show on that video, Dewey, is you can take one side of the hips and you can just kind of lift and lower without doing a full windshield wiper. So I start like that typically, but I'll progress into the full movements. So start 90-90 and you can go kind of one hip up and back to kind of get that joint moving, especially if you've been sitting all day or if you do have really tight hips. Then you can progress into kind of that leaning back position for support, and then you can take your hips more through a full range of motion. But you should never feel that you are so restricted that you have to crank your body or your limbs through these positions. A lot of people will try to kind of crank on that for flexibility or mobility when in reality you're fighting your own body and nervous system. So I would progress through that based on how you're feeling, starting just kind of moving, getting it going. There's some other things you can do kind of which we can talk about too, and then progressing into fluid and slow movement with control. Mobility is ultimately controlled and stable ranges of motion. So that's how I would go about that.
So I go for walks. It's about what I can do. I'm in a very confined space. I could probably do more. I'll admit I'm lazy. It's easier to go for a walk. But would this be the kind of thing that I could do or should do before going out for a 3-mile walk?
Absolutely. So with walking, you're constantly going from opposite sides of the body, single leg stance, going back and forth, and your hips and all the joints within are going to be going back and forth through those rotational movements and those forward and back and in and out. So getting the hips to feel a little bit more loose or fluid or lighter is a good term I use. You just kind of feel like lighter. Your movement or your walking will feel more fluid and maybe less length of time to feel like, wow, I didn't need to walk as long to feel like I'm kind of loose. And this plays above and below. So low back and knees can benefit from this as well.
Yeah, I certainly find as I progress through the walk that I find a rhythm, find my gait, and it sounds like this is the kind of thing that might allow me to find that a little faster and therefore enjoy my walk more, maybe do it at a little faster pace, get a little more aerobic out of it. That's good. I think we have another that is, this is something that you're doing with a roller. And
yes.
It is a foam roller, with a long foam roller. And put it long ways along your spine. Make sure your head stays on the foam roller. If not, it's going to arch your neck there. All you're going to do, feet flat, put the arms out, and just sit and open and breathe. We're using gravity as a horizontal decompression, naturally using gravity to help decompress your spine. You can play with arm positions, feeling it in the chest and shoulders, opening up, and just taking deep breaths from your belly try to break up that connective tissue tightness up in front and decompressing into the back. Don't overthink the arching in your back. Try to be as neutral as you can, but it's really about just letting your breath and gravity doing the work for you. A lot of breaths, you can make it dynamic.
So is that also a pre-exercise, or is that a post, or can it be done either or both?
Yeah, so breathing is really interesting. Pre or post, that one I would do pre any type of movement, or I was moving my arms, so any type of, with tennis or playing or overhead or arm sports, that would be great to do pre, or lifting upper body, anything from that needs your shoulder mobility to be happening. Breathing is actually, we do it every day. That is something that I would ideally suggest everyone start all of their training with, or their workouts or your walks. It helps center the body, and using your breath to kind of expand, opening rib cage, opening thoracic spine, and getting more mobility just by using your breath. Typically, especially times like this where we're all stuck inside, there's a lot of uncertainty. We're not probably breathing as deep and as full as we could be to benefit our body in general from breathing, but also you're going to be finding that your body might be a little bit more restricted and more tight. So for sure, doing breathing pre-exercise, and then breathing post-exercise or in the evening can be used to actually down-regulate your nervous system, or relax your mind and body. So you can use it as a recovery or an anti-stress, or to help with sleep, especially, once again, times like this where we're all kind of, we're a little stressed out now with this, what's happening, around the world.
Yep. I know with a lot of meditational type things, there's a big focus on controlling your breathing. As a tennis player, we are always trying to use your breathing to control whether you're too high or too low at the beginning, before a point, and at the end of a point, right? You're really excited because you want a point, you got to calm yourself down. You're really down because you're having a bad day. You got to figure a way to kind of pump yourself back up. It looks like this is another venue where you can practice those routines, and breathing being really important. How do you relate this to tennis, one, but two, you were using a very specific piece of equipment. The kind of thing that I think maybe some people have around is maybe they have one of those noodles that they use in the pool if they happen to have a pool, or they take their kids to a pool. Absent of that, what could someone use to accomplish the same things?
For sure. So relating to tennis, a lot of tennis athletes especially are breathing more short breath, or from their neck, shoulders, and chest, and it's very difficult to kind of get that full expansion. So we can talk breathing for tennis athlete can help with rib cage and thoracic spine for having mobility for all of the rotational movements needed in the sport. But any rotational sport where you have to have kind of the trunk and torso rotating, being able to breathe in that.
Can you back up for a sec? Because you've used that term thoracic spine a couple of times.
Yeah.
And if you could explain to people what that is. I think most people know the spine. They've been to the doctor, and there's a little skeleton, and it has this little curves. But, the term thoracic spine, what does that mean?
Got it. The thoracic spine is, so the neck is up here, or cervical. The thoracic is pretty much our trunk. T for trunk, thorax. So it's going to be on that skeleton we see at the doctor. It's going to be that big kind of connecting from the small to the head, and then the lower back to the pelvis. So thoracic, T, trunk, thorax, big in the center, responsible for major rotation in our bodies.
Cool. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted people to kind of have that in their head and not be thinking about that while concentrating on what you were saying. Yeah,
thanks. That's good. So I like T for trunk. So thoracic for trunk.
Okay.
So helping with the mobility for the tennis athlete in their trunk by doing that deeper type of breathing like I was showing in the video. Also for the tennis athlete who are going to be playing super long points, super explosive, and their heart rate goes up, like you had mentioned before, you have to regulate that. You have to regulate your heart rate, and tennis athletes should know when they can perform at their optimal level. Are they going to be low heart rate? Are they going to be super fast heart rate? Or they're going to be somewhere in between? And everyone is a little bit different there. But you can use this type of breathing to down regulate or slow your heart rate. And for me, if I'm playing long points, I'm taking all 25 seconds between, and I'm trying to go through those deep, slow breaths to down regulate my heart rate. So I'm ready to put my best effort forward on the next point.
So we
and then
started
the second
at
part was,
yep.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I guess if we kind of keep going up the body, because we started with the hips, right? And then we moved to the middle, the trunk, the middle section with the thoracic spine. And I think you have an exercise that you also gave us for kind of shoulders and upper body. And I think we have a video for that one also, if we can play it.
What's up, guys? Coach Riff here. It's Thursday. Yesterday I gave you one of my favorite hip mobility exercises to do before training or just daily if you have some tight hips. Today I want to talk about the shoulders. So what you can do for the shoulder mobility warm-up is you can take a circle band and you can start really, really wide by your side. You want to feel yourself connected to the ground so you don't arch your low back. You can start wide and you're going to have slight tension out on the band. You can go up and around. You just do this by being aware of tension in the body. A lot of times people will extend from their low back. So if that's the case, go even wider in the band and work through that range of motion in the shoulders. Or you can go tall kneeling position and you're going to be connected to the ground a little bit more. Do this before upper body training, before sport, or just general if you have tight shoulders. Thanks, guys. What's up, guys? Coach Riff here. It's
Good stuff. Good stuff. How would you use all of these all the time?
That's a good question. So I like to think about my mobility or my pre-routine as opening up my body for its performance potential before what I'm about to do. So if I'm going to go play tennis, like a tennis match, I'm going to do my breathing to open up my whole trunk, my tight or locked patterns maybe in my shoulders. I'm going to do those hip windshield wipers, and I'm going to do some sort of shoulder mobility type work, because that's a whole body thing kind of going on. If I'm about to maybe go do like push-ups or bench press or overhead pressing for like an upper body day in a gym, I may not do the windshield wiper hip movement. I'm going to prep my body with the breath to open up the rib cage and shoulders, and then I'm going to probably do some sort of shoulder mobility and activation routine as well, knowing the hips might not be in play in that session. So that's kind of how I look at prioritizing these movements here.
So getting ready to exercise is really important. We were in academy session last week, and Kevin Anderson came and spoke to them virtually. One of the things which he was really clear about was how much time he spends getting ready to go on the court and warm up. So the pre-on-court warm up is pretty extensive. I mean, I think if I were to recall what he said, it can last as much as half an hour just getting ready to get on the court and start hitting and moving slowly, right?
Yeah.
Is this something how would it benefit people to do more of it? Because I'm sure it's neglected. I think we all say, oh, I want to get out there. I know that as soon as my shoes are on, I'm ready to grab my little walking stick and get out the door. And I would guess most other people are similar. At least I hope they are. I hope I'm not the only lazy person in the world. What's the benefit to doing this, and how would somebody get more enjoyment, I guess, is the big thing, by doing this more consistently, more religiously, and not just blowing it off as, well, I'm supposed to do some stretches, so I get outside the door and I lean against the wall with my foot back and stretch my Achilles a little bit, and things that people generally do. How would this help them as they're stuck inside more?
Yeah, so a couple thoughts from this. So first, Kevin Anderson, one of the best professional tennis athletes in the world. So his routine, he's also, I don't know, Dewey, probably over 6'4", no, way over 6'7", he's tall, so he's going to have some areas on his body that probably need more attention than, let's say, me. Like my low back is probably not as vulnerable as someone who might be that tall with the same forces. So I want everyone to know, like, you don't have to do a 30 to 45 minute pre-workout mobility routine that he might do for his body and his demands of his sport. But what this is going to help do, and briefly mentioned it a little bit earlier, is it's going to allow more freedom of movement to help your body work more efficiently for the outcome that you're about to do. So if we go back to you, Dewey, you said your long walks. If you want to go on a 3-mile walk and you're feeling a little bit more stiff, your mind's going to be focused on, oh, my hip, or I got to kind of work up maybe a mile later, and then I can start to enjoy my walk. Where if you maybe spend 5 to 10 minutes pre-3-mile walk, you might be able to get out the door, feel lighter, and enjoy that walk from the get-go. So I would encourage people to attach a mobility or pre-movement or training or workout routine to the joy and benefit that they're trying to achieve with the workout they're about to do.
If we're talking about a recreational player, so maybe they're playing 3-5 league tennis, playing a lot of doubles, what would be the ideal thing for them to do before they walk on the court? Could you give us a just brief workout of what that warm-up that would look like?
Yeah, so something I would focus on ground up for the whole body for the tennis athlete. Like I said, I was probably going to do the breathing, the hips, and the shoulders from those videos if I was going to go play a match. Any level, 3-5 professional, I'm still going to have them address full body. So I might do some sort of ankle mobility work or calf rolling. If you don't have a roller, you can just be doing ankle circles or some sort of calf stretch that's more dynamic in nature. So that's addressing the ankle. Then I'm going to go into the hips, which I'm going to then probably do a variation or multiple variations of that hip 90-90 windshield wiper that you saw. Any type of rotational movement. So we've all probably seen different lunges and rotations. There's different breathing positions that you can be in rotations, and then taking deep breaths to help open up what I talked about earlier, that thorax. And then, sorry, ahead of it, but I would start with probably that breathing on the foam roller, and I can talk about how to modify that if you don't have a foam roller or anything.
Yes,
and then moving up to, do you want me to go there now?
No, why don't you finish and then come back?
Okay. Then I would go up to the shoulders. So an example would then be that shoulder over and backs with the band. Really, really easy. If you don't have a band, you can do what's called you can do like a backstroke, or you can take your shoulders through those ranges of motion really slow, and everyone's positions are going to be a little bit different on that. And there's things you can do like kind of over your head and coming back, which can help take the shoulder through all of the positions it might have to do on the tennis court. So that's kind of how it would go ground up through a tennis mobility without knowing the person. They're going to know where they're stuck more or where their issues are, and then they can spend more time there. This does not include the dynamic warm-up done for playing. Okay, so this is just a mobility routine to move, to prep the body, so then the dynamic warm-up's more effective, specific to the sport, and then you go play your sport.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, it's kind of tacked on pre-dynamic warm-up is a mobility or self-care opening. I call it movement prep.
Gotcha. Yeah, can you help us with, if we don't have a foam roller or something around, what can we use for doing some of this?
So the breathing, the whole focus point of the breathing is to get the expansion 360 degrees. So through the front, through the sides, through the back. So that can open up the rib cage and, like I said before, that thorax or that T-spine for rotation. The roller is a means to raise yourself up so your arms can be against gravity, and then you're going to get a little bit more chest and shoulder focus that way. But if you don't have a foam roller, you can just use gravity horizontally, meaning you're just laying flat on the ground. And I like to put my legs up on a chair. So I'm like imagine you're sitting in a chair, but you're on your back. So your legs are totally relaxed. So your spine's flatter or more flat to the ground. And then you can take your arms out in positions and go through those deep breathing. It won't be as much of a pull on the chest, but if we're normally playing tennis forward or inside and stuck or sitting or slouched and on a keyboard and phones, that's going to be extremely beneficial to still open up the tissues of the chest, the trunk, and then get that whole 360 degrees of breathing to help prep your body for what you're about to do next.
Sounds like there is a lot of things somebody can do in a very small space to incrementally improve what they're getting out of their workouts during this time. I want to thank you, Josh. Over the past 3 weeks, I guess 2 weeks ago, we had your co-director of fitness, Dio Miranda, on with us. And then last week, we had the director of fitness at Soto Tennis Academy in Soto Grande, Spain, on, and now you. And the three of you are teaming up for a new venture that I believe we're going to launch next Tuesday. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And I can help you too, because I'm producing it. But
yeah. So that's going to be kind of like a team collaboration to, especially in this time, what people can do at home as it relates to tennis performance and maybe injury prevention. So anything related, we'll call it under the fitness umbrella that has to do with performance on the tennis court. We're going to be collaborating on different exercises, at-home drills, and kind of giving questions and thoughts back and forth on that. So what Mike in Spain is very familiar with and what has worked, and then sharing what Dio, Miranda, and I have been doing, and then kind of collaborating philosophy and asking questions, and maybe even growing and creating new programs, exercises, or just opening some people's awareness on how that some of these things we present or talk about can really help their tennis performance, longevity, body, and injury prevention. I mean, it's a cool thing.
Yeah, when I first met Dio, I was so impressed with his philosophy of I train people who happen to play sports, right? So it's a people-centric, for a people-first environment. I think you all have that same philosophy. And so the goal of that show is, while we will be talking about how it is specific to helping tennis players, or you will be talking about, it is also designed to not just be the elite athlete. There will be segments which will be designed for someone who might be an adult just getting started and just getting active again, and others for people who are competitive but more the weekend warrior type of thing, or someone playing high school tennis. And then we'll also be speaking about those elite performance athletes who have their goals set on a prize that is really far out there. How can they benefit from some of the things that you'll be talking about? I'm excited about it. It's going to be a really cool collaboration, hearing what goes on the other side of the pond and relating it to what goes on here into what I believe are really high performance environments. So thank you for being a part of that project.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that has been Tennis 2020 for today. Real talk, real people, real life. We've been talking with Josh Rifkin, co-director of fitness at Austin Tennis Academy, getting you some information you can use to help you in your everyday workouts as you're feeling like you just want to get outside and flap your wings and fly. We'll be back tomorrow. Actually, we won't be back tomorrow. We're going to be doing a little run through for Josh and Dio and Mike's show for next week. So we will not be here tomorrow, but we will be back on Wednesday with my weekly show with Lisa Stone on Tennis Takeaways with Lisa and Dewey. On Thursday, we'll be talking to a coach from Canada, Zach Olin, and he will be talking about some of the resources that he has made available to just anybody who wants them to help you move forward during this time when you're stuck inside. Thanks for being here. We'll talk to you soon.